Hello there. Welcome into a Monday edition of the show. I am so glad to have you, whether you're listening on your radio, online at extrasports1300.com, or whether you're listening on the widely available and 100% free Extra Sports 1300 app. A veritable cornucopia of sports topics coming your way over the course of the next 3 hours. I would love to get your thoughts on all of them. Our phone line and text line are the same number for your convenience, 719-247-1313. Starting the show with a developing situation in London, as the U.S. right now has just taken a 6-point lead over Germany, and LeBron James, much like he did Saturday, is coming to the rescue of Team USA. South Sudan, who has not been a country for as long as Steph Curry, LeBron James, and Kevin Durant have been playing NBA basketball, were 45.5-point underdogs, nearly beat Team USA in what would have been a national disaster, if not for LeBron James's layup with 8 seconds to go. And maybe a missed foul call on the other end when South Sudan tried to answer, but that's neither here nor there. And he's doing it again today. Down the stretch, he has, by my wholly unofficial tally, 8 points and 4 rebounds to help the U.S. pull away just a bit from Germany, led by the Wagner brothers and Dennis Schroeder. So curious timing, and I'll keep you updated. They're in a commercial break right now. See if the U.S. can hold on and round out their Olympic tune-ups with a perfect 5-0 record, but it hasn't been easy. Has not been easy for Team USA. But the fact that LeBron is once again coming to the U.S.'s rescue, it does make the comments of Embiid over the weekend a little curious, at least the timing of them. Joel Embiid was asked by the New York Times whether he has any doubt that Team USA will bring home the gold medal from Paris. And he said, quote, I mean, you look at the talent that the U.S. has, but I mean, there's also equal talent on other teams. Thank you for that. And the talent that's on the U.S. team, you've got to understand that most of those guys are also older. LeBron now is not the LeBron that was a couple years ago. So that's a big difference. So the name might be there, but everyone would also tell you, and you can see for yourself, the athletic LeBron and the dominant that he was a couple of years ago is not the same as he is now. So yeah, I mean, I think people get fooled by the names on their own paper. But yeah, those names have been built throughout their career, and now they're older, so they're not what they used to be. End quote. LeBron James has the basketball right now, trying to almost single-handedly get Team USA a win over Germany. It's now 92-86. LeBron's just been fouled. He'll probably, or did Germany have a foul to give? I think they had a foul to give. But 16 seconds left. U.S. up by 6 over Germany, looking like they will indeed finish 5-0 in their pre-Olympic tune-ups. So it's few things here. First of all, why is Joel Embiid speaking in the third person about Team USA? You know, he is on this team. And he's referring to them like he's looking over there. Over there, Team USA. You're on Team USA, dude. You could say us. I know the U.S. poached him from France, but he has dual citizenship. He's allowed to play for Team USA. and he is on Team USA, he should be speaking as us instead of US. Second, and maybe you don't begrudge Joel Embiid too much for this, given that he is new to Team USA, but just in case no one has told him, we carry ourselves in a different way when us Americans when it comes to the Olympics and specifically basketball. We are not so quick to give credit to other teams. It's not the way that we operate when it comes to USA basketball. As Devin Booker misses a shot, Germany with it here. I got to be careful. I don't want to do play-by-play. That would get me in trouble. Germany with a late basket, only cosmetic, as the U.S. does indeed beat Germany 92-88. And we'll continue on here. So, what Joel Embiid may not understand is that when it comes to basketball, we beat our chest. The bar that we set for our teams, both on the men's and the women's side, is not just simply that we'll take home the gold, that will dominate. That's our mindset. That is the expectation level. Now, we do understand in the back of our mind that the rest of the world has gotten better. We look at the NBA and about the top 5 players in the NBA, not a single one of them is American. So we understand that the world is getting better. We understand that we may not dominate like we did in 92. The dream team is a lifetime ago. But we still conduct ourselves as if every game is the U.S. versus Angola. I'm not even asking Joel Embiid to say, oh, yeah, we're going to dominate. But when you are asked a softball, like, is there any doubt that Team USA will bring home gold? You take that red meat and you toss it to us, Joel Embiid. You give us what we want. You tell us what we want to hear. No, there is no doubt in my mind. We are the best team in the world, comprised of the best players in the world. We are going to Paris expecting to win. And if I had any doubt, I would have stayed on France. But he is new, so maybe he doesn't quite get it. And then, obviously, the comments being about LeBron, given that now 2 games in a row he has been the hero for Team USA, makes it a little bit weirder that he would point out LeBron is not what he once was, and LeBron is older. And you may think that will dominate because LeBron's on our team. LeBron being an older version of LeBron James isn't Team USA's problem. Okay, LeBron James at approaching 40 years old is still unequivocally one of the 12 best American-born players in the world. This is not like Derek White, where you go, okay, why is he there because he's one of the best, or is he there because of his skill set? Is he there because of other reasons? LeBron deserves to be on this team. He is one of the 12 best American players in the world. Okay, that's not the issue here. And in fact, the way that he's played for the last 2 games, I don't know that LeBron should even be the example Joel Embiid brings up. Here's the issue that I continue to see with Team USA, and it does have to do with LeBron a little bit. The issue for Team USA is that in an age where the NBA has started to understand that super teams are not the way to go, that you do want to figure out fit, you do want to get complementary skill sets out there, you want a good mix. You don't just take the biggest names and put them all together. And I think the U.S. has done some of that throughout their roster. But the biggest issue that continues to pop up, and it popped up today, it popped up against South Sudan, it popped up in every game, even the Serbia game and the Canadian game where Team USA pulled away. The problem is the players that Joel Embiid is referring to, and it's not just LeBron. It's Steph, it's KD, and we haven't seen KD, but we know why he's there and what role he will have once he is healthy. If he does make it to this weekend or early next week for the Serbia match. He didn't play again today. The issue with Team USA is that because it's Steph Curry, because it's LeBron James, because it's Kevin Durant, they have to start them. They have to be the focal point. Steve Kerr always talks about his core four being LeBron, Steph, KD, and Embiid. Why is that? Are they the four best players this team has? Not right now. I don't think so. I think Anthony Edwards might be the actual best player that Team USA has. So it's not because they're necessarily the four best. It's because three of them are three of the most recognizable, biggest stars on this team. And then Joel Embiid was the guy that they poached from France. So you can't very well poach this guy from France and then bury him on the bench. That's the issue Team USA has. Not that LeBron's on this team. It's that they're relying on the trio of LeBron, Steph, and KD. At least that was their plan. And who knows if Kawhi Leonard would have been healthy, maybe it would have been those four guys and Embiid. Every one of these five tune-ups, you're waiting for the second unit to come in. Because that's when you know things are going to get going. That's when Team USA is going to be clicking. And it was no different today. When Anthony Edwards is out there, when it's the combination of Anthony Davis and Bam Adebayo, that's when Team USA starts to flex their muscle. That's when they start to pull away from teams. Happened today. It's neck and neck. Steve Kerr brought in the second unit. They get a 10-point lead at the end of the first quarter. They bring back in the starters. Germany gets it to within 3. They start the third quarter. Germany gets out to a lead by the end of the third quarter. Team USA talks about finding fits. That's why Derek White's here instead of Jaylen Brown. It's because it's fit. It's because of the skill set that Derek White brings. They need that. Well, he didn't play much today. But you need to have that mentality up and down your roster. I'm not saying don't have Steph or don't have KD or don't have LeBron. But they're supposed to be kind of bridging the gap between their generation of NBA player and this newer generation of NBA player with Edwards and Booker and Tatum. So how about you mix in some of these guys? Like if you want to start LeBron, start LeBron. He's been one of their best players. That's fine. But maybe start a backcourt of Devin Booker and Anthony Edwards. or start Steph and bring LeBron off the bench as a super sub. But you know how silly that sounds coming out of my mouth. Well, that's the problem. The problem is when you have Steph, KD, and LeBron, you have to feature them. They have to be the stars. You can't, they may not agree to be on this team. If Steve Kerr's going to have a frank conversation and say, I got to bring you off the bench. But the starting five for the U.S. has been the worst part about this team. And the second unit has been the best part. I would love for just once, and it's probably too late now, but just one of these tune-up games for Steve Kerr to roll out a starting five of Edwards, Tatum, Bam, AD, and then pick one guy. You want to throw LeBron in there? That's a big lineup, but maybe you do. Or maybe you throw Steph in as the fifth guy. Or maybe you don't do either of those guys because you want Drew Holiday's defense. I don't know. I just love to see it because I know that unit I just mentioned is far better than any second unit in the Olympic field. I think they would fare pretty well as the starting five because they fit better. Right? They're making the right bat. They're not deferring to Steph or LeBron. They're just going out there and doing their thing. And in the midst of that, they make the right basketball plays. They find the open guy. So I don't know if this is Joel Embiid's intention. It probably isn't. But the problem is not that LeBron's on this team or Steph Curry's on this team. That's problematic. They have plenty of younger players that can help them win a gold medal. The problem is they're relying on them. Problem is they have to start them. They have to keep Kevin Durant on this roster and can't replace him even though he's hurt. And then you throw Joel Embiid into the mix, which makes all of this even more comical in a way because Joel Embiid has been one of the least impactful players on Team USA this entire time. It's not that they're on the team. And it's not even that we're looking at Team USA and saying, well, our only hope is LeBron or our only hope is Steph Curry and Kevin Durant. I think it's that Steve Kerr and Team USA are. Their starting five is like a super team. And Drew Holiday. Right? But we got to get the biggest stars. LeBron, KD, Steph. I keep throwing KD in there. He hasn't even played. I have to have Steph and LeBron. And then I fill around them with guys who are at times afraid to call their own number, that are always looking for Steph and LeBron. They're too reliant on those guys. And I say that even with what LeBron did the last couple of games. I just think that Steve Kerr and Team USA in general is not looking at this top to bottom like what's the best lineups in terms of chemistry. What roles would be best for these people? Not, well, I can't bring LeBron James off the bench. I can't be that guy. I can't bring Steph Curry off the bench. I got to coach him for 82 games coming up. So it's been, as I said, every game. Every game it's been like this. Starting five looks out of sorts. They look disjointed. They don't look like they have any cohesiveness. And then Steve Kerr brings in this second unit, and the U.S. takes off. The source is not the one that you want to hear it from for a variety of reasons, right? You don't want to hear this coming out of Joel Embiid's mouth, but I think he's actually on to something. I just don't know if it's the thing that he intended to be bringing up. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on that. Just getting going on this Monday edition of the show. I got to talk about the other Team USA. Well, a great weekend for Team USA basketball, I must say. Even with a couple of wins over the last couple of days, hasn't been a great weekend for Team USA, especially on the women's side. We'll get into that a little bit later. Take your thoughts again. 719-247-1313. Welcome in. Be back after this. Welcome back, Drive Time Sports. Team USA takes down Germany 92-88. It was their final USA basketball showcase before they take on Nikola Jokic and Serbia in about a week. Less than that, 6 days from now. Opening ceremonies of the Olympics coming up on Friday. We'll be all over everything going on from Paris. So even though the U.S. ends up finishing the USA basketball showcase unbeaten, there are some cracks for sure. And can you imagine? Well, two things. One, at the very least, if they didn't play Germany today, say South Sudan was the last impression you got of Team USA. And then, of course, imagine if LeBron would have missed that layup. And what a disaster that would have been. But as we get closer to the Olympics beginning, some people will forget some of the struggles of Team USA and just say, you know what? They finished 5-0. They beat everybody. Didn't look pretty at times, but they beat everybody, and that's all they need to do once the Olympics start. Can't quite say the same thing for Team USA on the women's side. The best sporting event this weekend, hands down, was the WNBA All-Star Game. And I'm watching that, thinking to myself, it shouldn't be this hard to make this in every sport. It was just the best players in the world teaming up and caring. And the rest took care of itself. Give me the best players, have them care, and then it will be a fine event. That's what you had. And I know that they had more reason to care because this was a showcase event in a year when the WNBA and women's basketball as a whole is continually trying to make a good, for many people, first impression. But it really shouldn't be that hard. Just care. Like we saw this with the NBA after Kobe passed. That was a great All-Star game. That was a throwback All-Star game. The best players in the world playing hard for 4 quarters and trying to win. We talk about all-star games and stuff kind of jumping the shark or we don't care about them anymore. Well, what's the primary reason why? There are a lot of reasons why. What's the number one? Players don't care. They're not willing to put out the full amount of effort for an all-star game as they do during the season. And if you have to have a legend pass away, or you have to have the added dynamics of Saturday's WNBA All-Star game, then maybe you just shouldn't do All-Star games. Like, if that's the only thing that spurs these athletes into competing hard and putting on a good show, then just don't do it. But that game was awesome. They cared. And the added dynamic of it was Team USA against, to be fair and not trying to be harsh, Team USA's rejects. Most of those players on the WNBA All-Star team are eligible to play for Team USA. But it was Team USA versus Team USA's rejects, and Team USA's rejects took it to them. That game wasn't as close as the final score would indicate. Team WNBA was better for large swaths of that basketball game. And the ironic thing about all of it, it was not Caitlin Clark that was the one showing up Team USA. Cheryl Reeve made sure that wouldn't happen. I don't know if it was unspoken or she mentioned it in the locker room, but Team USA was picking up Caitlin Clark full court. They were not giving her an inch of space. So either they understood the assignment or Cheryl Reeve made sure that they understood the assignment. Do not let Caitlin Clark go off in this game. Which I don't know that they fully succeeded in, given that she was 1 assist shy of the All-Star game record. She still had 10 assists. But in terms of her shot, they took away all of her space. They smothered her on the perimeter. And I thought at times Caitlin Clark was trying to force it. She did not shoot the ball well at all, but she distributed it just fine. So 10 assists, still pretty good outing against Team USA. But it sure seemed like there was a concentrated effort to make sure Caitlin Clark did not become the story of that game. And in that way, they were successful. Because the story was Arike Ogunbowale, who, through different ways, is still kind of pointing out the same wrongdoing by Team USA that Caitlin Clark balling out would have. So Arike Ogunbowale puts up 34 points all in the second half. She was unstoppable. And if you were sitting on your couch watching it, wondering why she wasn't on Team USA, you either did a Google search and know what I'm about to say, or I will be telling you for the first time. The reason Arike Ogunbowale is not on Team USA is not that she was snubbed. She told them no. She did this about a month or so ago. Somebody asked her about it. She said that she withdrew her name. She didn't want to be picked. Why? Quote, there's politics in everything. So while Team USA tried to make their initial roster announcement about these are the players that, you know, deserve it the most and they put in the work and da-da-da-da-da, all this kind of stuff, and here's someone else who's pointing out, no, politics. They exist. So she's essentially pointing out the same thing that Caitlin Clark balling out would have. Like, clearly this is not, it doesn't look like Team USA is legitimately the 12 best players. There are other factors that go into it, and factors that go into it beyond fit and role. Because what I saw Arike Ogunbowale do on Saturday, you can't tell me Team USA, when she's a shooter. Team USA didn't want Caitlin Clark because of the attention that she would receive that they felt would detract from their goal. She'd get too much attention. Too many people would be about her, and us raving Caitlin Clark fans, us lunatics, would be upset that Caitlin Clark wasn't on the floor for every minute of every game in Paris. That's what reportedly was the reason why. Here's someone that's been in the pool available for selection longer than Caitlin Clark has, saying, yeah, there's politics that go into it. And then she went out and absolutely torched Team USA. And I don't know how much leniency you give Team USA, because somebody might argue, like, look, this was their first game playing together. And you'd be right. This year wasn't one of their big arguments the, continuity. A lot of people looked at Diana Taurasi and said she's not one of the 12 best American players anymore. Oh, but she's been on the team. Or this player's been in Team USA camp. Caitlin Clark didn't go to Team USA camp because she was busy winning NCAA tournament games for Iowa, but she couldn't go to camp. So she doesn't get to go, but Diana Taurasi does. So shouldn't this team be better? I mean, if the whole idea is we don't have to get ready, we don't have to work people in, we can pick up right where we left off. And by the way, it wasn't even like they were playing another national team. They were playing a group of WNBA players that they deemed weren't deserving of a Team USA spot, but also that were just cobbled together by fan vote and what was ever left over and thrown out there on the court. So you tell me which team should look better, which team should fit better. I still think it would be Team USA. And yet you wouldn't know it watching. It's almost like some of the best players in America right now were playing on Team WNBA. They weren't all on Team USA. Like Arika Gumbawale, who scored 34 points. Or Angel Reese, who had another double-double, 12 points and 11 rebounds. She had 6 rebounds before we barely even noticed she was in the game. And then Caitlin Clark, despite the smothering defense Kelsey Plum and others put on her, still dished out 10 assists. It's almost, in a way, better that it's Arike Gumbawale. That was the star on Saturday. Because if it was Caitlin Clark, Team USA could rely on the same argument they've always relied on. It's not about now. It's about the process. Well, Arika Gumbawale has been around for a while. And she voluntarily took herself out for the very same reason that we think Caitlin Clark's not on this team. Politics. It's not a great look for Team USA losing that game the other night. Not a good look at all. And the players that were leading the way, the ones that they felt 2 of them weren't deserving, and 2 of them would just be, oh, we're just bringing them on to sell more jerseys. We don't want to do that. No, it was because some of the veteran players on the team didn't want them there, or the coach didn't want them there. And here's a player that may have been picked had she not withdrawn, and the reason she's withdrawing is because of the politics. You hate it. You think at this level it should be the ultimate meritocracy, right? We have 12 slots. We're going to give them to the 12 best players. Maybe you make, one tweak or 2 based on fit. You can't have all guards or all forwards. Like, there's a little bit of a nod to roster construction. But it doesn't seem like a few of the players that are on Team USA are there because they're better basketball fits. You can't tell. You don't think Caitlin Clark and her passing ability would be a good fit with Team USA? Arika Gumbawale's shot making, you can't fit that into the squad? It's disappointing. It's just disappointing that it exists. I'm not surprised it exists, but just a little disappointed. And then you throw in what happened with Jaylen Brown, right? And he's saying politics. So there are a few more sources that are popping up that are saying, yeah, it's not a meritocracy. It's not just the 12 best players that were born in this country. There are other factors, and factors that when we're building our team, if we were to build a team, we probably would not consider. 719-247-1313. Have more on the WNBA All-Star Game. And now an interesting moment in this ascension, this phenomenon that is women's basketball, because no Caitlin Clark for a month, no Angel Reese for a month. And after Sunday, no Arike Ogunbowale for a month. Talk about that in just a little bit. Coming up next, one of the more beloved Denver Broncos over the last decade or so calls it a career. We had a retirement from the NFL over the weekend with some local meaning, significance, local significance. Shaq Barrett, former CSU Ram and Denver Bronco, has called it a career after 9 seasons. Said he wants to give his full attention to his wife and children. So good for him. Dealt with injuries. I believe he tore his Achilles a year or so ago. So maybe that played into it a little bit, but Shaq Barrett hanging him up after 9 seasons in the NFL. And he is not only one of those cautionary tales of, make sure you know what you have before you let it go. But he's also one of the most fun rabbit holes you could go down. We love these alternate realities. What if this happens and this and this and this, then what would be? Shaq Barrett's like the ultimate one of those. So Shaq Barrett, undrafted, out of Colorado State, is the talk of training camp, his rookie season. Right? Every year it seems like the Broncos have one stud that they don't even draft. But they sign him. And so he comes in, it takes a few weeks, but he fills in for DeMarcus Ware. He ends up playing well in that game. For the season, he has 50 tackles, 5.5 sacks. And you think with DeMarcus Ware's football mortality starting to show a little bit, that post Super Bowl 50, post DeMarcus Ware, wouldn't Shaq Barrett look great next to Von Miller? That sentiment existed in Broncos country. John Elway and the powers that be felt differently. They felt like they had to go out and get a bona fide stud pass rusher with the reputation to back it up. Even with how well Shaq Barrett had played, they wanted to get somebody better. So with the 5th pick in the 2018 draft, they draft Bradley Chubb. And shortly thereafter, they let Shaq Barrett walk. He goes to Tampa. That's where the paths diverge. And Bradley Chubb is often injured, later traded for a first-round pick that they then have to spend to get Sean Payton to fix one of their other problems that arose in the wake of Shaq Barrett leaving, which is Russell Wilson. Meanwhile, Shaq Barrett eventually leads the NFL in sacks, wins the Super Bowl with Tampa Bay. So you think about it, if the Broncos felt that Shaq Barrett was capable of what he ultimately became in Tampa, they don't draft Bradley Chubb. You're well aware what Wyoming quarterback was taken 2 picks later. That already is one of the greatest Broncos what ifs. What if they just forget what they needed, whether they needed a pass rusher or not? People say if the Broncos would have gotten Josh Allen, they'd be where the Bills are. But now you have this, you don't even have a need for Bradley Chubb if you believe in Shaq Barrett and you commit to him. Bradley Chubb did not nearly have the production that Shaq Barrett did. And because you didn't end up drafting Josh Allen that year because you took Bradley Chubb, now you were still in perpetual search for a quarterback. You went through a few. Then you landed on Russell Wilson. You overpaid for him. Now you have to cut him. You had to bring in Sean Payton in the meantime with the pick you got from Bradley Chubb. See what I mean? It's a fun rabbit hole to go down. But yes, there are a lot of dots that you have to connect there, but don't tell me you haven't done it. But first and foremost, knowing what you have. It's funny because we see so many teams overvalue what they have. Right? And I think you're seeing this play out in live time with Justin Simmons. I think the prevailing theory was Justin Simmons is going to get cut from the Broncos and be picked up the very next day. He still doesn't have a gig. Philip Lindsay was the same way. Another one of these undrafted darlings of training camp that ended up producing for the Broncos. Once the Broncos let him go, it was like, oh, Philip Lindsay's going to haunt the Broncos for years to come. No, really didn't. Shaq Barrett, though, did. Letting Shaq Barrett go in retrospect was not a good idea. So it's funny. Teams and fan bases tend to overvalue their own guys. And here's an example of where at least the team itself didn't overvalue. In fact, they undervalued what they had. And it's sent them down a path where they're no closer to being any good than they were when they were drafting 5th overall. But Shaq Barrett will certainly go down as one of the best undrafted players in Broncos history, and it's a list that has more than a few names on it, and they are worth mentioning. Right? Would Jaleel McLaughlin already be 5th on that list? I was sketching this out today, and I was having a hard time coming up with number 5 on this list. I think he certainly has the chance to be that. But I put him at number 5. I think at number 4, you would have Philip Lindsay. Was quite productive when he was with the Denver Broncos. I think I would have Shaq Barrett 3rd. Only because the two guys in front of him, the Broncos valued more and stuck with. I have Shaq Barrett 3, Chris Harris 2. He was undrafted. And then, of course, the quintessential Broncos undrafted rookie free agent, Rod Smith. Ring of Famer. Some people think should be a Hall of Famer. But certainly when it comes to undrafted players in Denver, he is number 1. But who knows what Shaq Barrett could have been. If he would have done what he did with Tampa, with Denver, he might be at the top of this list. He is a 2-time Super Bowl champion after all. But great story. Had a lot of fans out here. Was one of the fan favorites of Broncos fans. And I know that many Broncos fans, as it was happening, were saying, why are the Broncos letting this guy go? Turns out they were right. Shaq Barrett calls it a career after 9 seasons. Take your thoughts, 719-247-1313. Of course, that begs the question, who is going to be the latest addition to that list? Quite a few undrafted rookies that are a little intriguing as training camp begins this week for the Denver Broncos in earnest. Everybody will be there. I got some thoughts. I'd like yours as well. 719-247-1313. Coming up next, more from Team USA as they round out their pre-Olympic warm-ups with the win over Germany. LeBron James playing the role of hero again, and we'll have a big honor bestowed upon him come Friday for the opening ceremonies. That's next here on Extra Sports 1300. Welcome in Drive Time Sports on this Monday. Ryan Kaufman with you. You can watch the show live on a daily basis as long as you follow us on some social media platform, whether it be Facebook, X, Instagram, or YouTube. The handle all the same at XTRA Sports 1300. The news of the afternoon is that Team USA has finished a perfect 5-0 in their pre-Olympic showcase games. They beat Germany today. And once again, like it was on Saturday when the Stars and Stripes narrowly avoided disaster against South Sudan, it was LeBron James coming to the rescue. 20 points, 8 of them in the crucial moments of the game, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists to help Team USA to beat Germany and finish a perfect 5-0. And also, you get news that LeBron James will be the flag bearer for Team USA when their boat comes down the River Seine on Friday. That's going to be cool. They're going to not walk into a stadium. They're going to be on boats. But LeBron James will be the flag bearer for Team USA on the men's side, and we'll see who it is on the women's side later this week. That will be named. Maybe Ledecky, Biles. We'll see. But the way that LeBron James is playing, especially in the last couple of games, you can tell that this means a lot to him. And his reaction to finding out, I think, was quite genuine. And, LeBron gets clowned a little bit because of how disingenuous he is about some things, like his reading habits. And when he discovers popular musical artists. So, like, the idea of Le Cap, I mean, it's based in some reality. But his reaction seemed very genuine. Steph Curry nominated him for it, and then the rest of Team USA, not just basketball, but across other sports as well, voted him to be the flag bearer. This does mean a lot to LeBron James. And while in his NBA life, in his day job, if you will, a lot of this has been about things that are not a great look for someone of LeBron James's stature, right? Nepotism, holding the Lakers hostage, things like that. We've seen it with athletes, especially in basketball, over the years. Any selfishness, any star treatment that they believe they are entitled to, it kind of melts away a little bit when they go play on an Olympic stage. And this does mean a lot to LeBron. And he's playing like it. Because he saved them from crisis against South Sudan. And without his efforts today, maybe they lose to Germany as well. I don't know that an NBA title is at the top of LeBron James's list of accomplishments that he still wants to get. I think he would like to. But it's become very clear where his priorities are when it comes to his professional life. He's more worried about who his boss is and who his coworkers are than he seems to be with winning a title. But he's certainly taking this Team USA thing seriously. He wants to help them win a gold medal. And that's not to say that there isn't some selfish motive behind all of this. Right? I mean, it's not that he's doing it for the good of America. Right? I think he wants this on his resume. But hey, I'll take LeBron being driven and wanting to win something over whatever he's been doing with the Lakers the last few months. Right? Even if it's in some way to augment his own list of career accomplishments, at least he's going about it the right way by playing at an extremely high level the last couple of games. I don't know what it, we think at the time that all of this means a lot, but we did a little bit in our Goat of Goats tournament that we had a few weeks ago. We brought up the success on the international level we brought up the dream team when it came to Michael Jordan. I can't sit here and say that winning a gold medal would tip the scales in LeBron's favor in the GOAT debate. Right? So while I can say, at least in part, he wants to win this gold medal for himself, as I think everybody on Team USA would like to do, I don't know that the calculus behind it is, people are going to look at me on a higher level than Jordan because I won another gold medal. So maybe he is a bit more altruistic with his goals because I don't think it changes anything. We may have the discussion after the Olympics are over and what it does to LeBron's legacy, but not to be too, not to assume, but let's just have it right now. Okay, I'm not afraid to do what Joel Embiid wouldn't in his New York Times piece. I'm going to say I have little doubt that the United States is going to win gold. What does it change for LeBron's legacy? This isn't like the team that came after the Redeem team. I don't know that a lot of people are looking at the U.S. winning a bronze at the World Cup as some kind of epic failure, that a wrong that has to be righted. I don't know. It doesn't do anything for me. But I don't think even another title changes anything for LeBron. So maybe I'm the wrong guy to ask because I think the GOAT debate was settled a while ago, and I just don't think there's anything LeBron can realistically do to change my mind that it's him and not Michael Jordan. But if you're somebody on the fence, if you're somebody younger, maybe it does. Because you're going to be growing up watching LeBron James play in another Olympics and win another gold medal. We don't lay out gold medals as part of the resume to make our argument one way or another. But a lot of our feelings on these matters, like the GOAT debate, do have to do with who you saw more, who you grew up with, because you hold those people in a little bit higher regard, even if you try to claim that, no, it's about this and about that. No, it's a little bit about the time that you saw them. And for younger basketball fans, for my kids, they're never seeing Michael Jordan on this stage. Never saw Michael Jordan on any stage other than Space Jam and Last Dance. But they've seen LeBron win a title. They're going to see him win another gold medal. Maybe the bet that LeBron's making is this just further cements him as the GOAT for the next generation. But I don't want to be, even with LeBron James, I don't want to be quite that harsh because I have seen it before. I have seen these mega stars, these multi-millionaires do treat these Olympics like a rower would. Like they care. And they're doing it for national pride. A little bit of, trying to accomplish something in their own career. But like we saw with Carmelo Anthony, he came back a changed man after he played in the Olympics. So while much of LeBron's professional life is orchestrated by him, I think there's a little bit more room in this case for him just to legitimately take pride in doing this. And I think for a lot of people around here, it's a little bit easier to root for LeBron with USA across his chest than Lakers. But if you are a basketball fan in this area and you happen to root for the team that plays at Ball Arena, this does bring up a very difficult. You're really, I got to imagine you're going through it right now. Right? Because you have two athletes who you have grown to at least dislike, if not outright loathe. But they're playing on Team USA with LeBron and Joel Embiid. And then you have this additional layer to it. How about this one, where Joel Embiid to the New York Times over the weekend basically says you shouldn't necessarily expect a gold medal to be in the bag because LeBron is old. You also got to understand that most of those guys are also older. LeBron now is not the LeBron that was a couple of years ago. For many people, that is Joel Embiid taking a shot at LeBron James. If you are a Nuggets fan, what side do you fall on? Taking Joel Embiid's side against LeBron, or are you going to defend LeBron against Joel Embiid? It's not a fair position that you've been put in, but here you are. A litmus test for who you may have slightly less sports hate for, Joel Embiid or LeBron James. Take your thoughts, 719-247-1313. LeBron James coming to the rescue of Team USA again today after he bailed them out against South Sudan on Saturday, and he will be the Olympic flag bearer for Team USA on the men's side when the opening ceremonies go on Friday. 719-247-1313. Coming up next, a little bit of physics talk when it comes to the WNBA. Link those two things together next on Extra Sports 1300. Talking ball today on Drive Time Sports. Basketball, football will be quickly getting into the conversation and probably dominating it as we get closer to training camps opening up across the NFL. I do have a couple of NFL items that I want to get to in a little bit regarding one current Packer quarterback and one former Packer quarterback. But in the meantime, the WNBA All-Star Game was on Saturday, and it was what we all hope All-Star Games are. A competitive game played between the best players that league has to offer. But for some reason, the other leagues cannot even come close to what we were treated to on Saturday for the WNBA. And yes, you could say that the WNBA had more at stake for their All-Star game this year, given that it was Team USA against Team WNBA, and because of the moment that women's basketball is having right now. But I feel like it shouldn't need that much. It really shouldn't. I get it. The sports that are more physical, hockey, football, it's just difficult because you're talking about a real risk of injury. Right? And as much as you love to see a competitive game in all of these All-Star games, you would be very upset if your team's best player got hurt playing a meaningless exhibition. Right? It's why there's so much more sentiment going the way of don't play anybody in the preseason. You don't want to risk these guys getting hurt. But there should be a middle ground, especially for basketball. Right? Let's make the most apples to apples comparison that we can. The women's game is not the men's game, but they are both in the end basketball. It shouldn't be that hard. And if they need to go to an international versus Team USA format, then so be it. They probably have even less incentive to go to that, given what Team WNBA did to Team USA. I don't think that USA basketball would love the idea of a team of Doncic and Jokic and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander beating Team USA in an all-star game. But I just don't think it's that difficult to do something to make these players care. Clearly, both sides, Team USA didn't lose that game for lack of trying. I know Diana Taurasi's post-game speech to her team where we can't take anybody lightly. I don't know that it was Team USA going, this is going to be a breeze. But it was about the best that you could hope for, unless you are very much all about Caitlin Clark and nothing else. And then you were a little disappointed that she didn't knock down one of her patented logo threes. But she still had 10 assists. Angel Reese was terrific. And then the story, of course, was Enrique Ogunbowale. But now the WNBA and women's basketball is reaching a very interesting time. If you think about this moment, and it's a moment spread out across many months, right? But Caitlin Clark, let's just call it January, right? Because Caitlin Clark, her story, or even, let's say January. Let's just say for about the last 6 or 7 months, women's basketball has been near the top of the list when it comes to sports talk, fan interest. right? All of Caitlin Clark's games were shattering records. She was shattering records. We got into the tournament, and then it was Caitlin, and it was Angel, and it was Paige. And the women's NCAA tournament was superior to the men's. And then we rolled right into the draft, and a bunch of people were watching that. They set records, rolled right into the WNBA season. And yes, some of the discussion was not always positive, but it was there. It was at the forefront. It was one of the top 2 or 3 topics on every show. One of the most popular things to talk about on social media. We've been riding this wave, or women's basketball has been riding this wave since January. And now, little physics lesson here. You know that objects in motion tend to stay in motion, yes? I believe Sir Isaac Newton taught us that. If not, some very smart scientist a long time ago did. But also, an object that rests tends to stay in rest. I think I got that right. Shouts to my high school physics teacher. She did the best she could. But my point here is we're heading into the Olympic break, and we will not see Angel Reese or Caitlin Clark for a month. In fact, Caitlin Clark took to social media over the weekend to basically say goodbye to everybody because you're not going to see her on camera. She's not going to be talking anytime soon. And Angel Reese has a bigger presence on social media, but we will not be paying attention to Angel Reese like we do when she's playing. And because of some of the decisions made by Team USA, I think there are a lot of people that would identify as women's basketball fans that have been very much into what they have seen over the last few months that may not be locked in to how Team USA fares in Paris. Maybe it's a Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese thing. Maybe it's just the Olympics are crowded. There are a lot of stuff, right? And basketball doesn't tend to be highlighted on NBC at night. Right? When I think of those tape delayed events that they show, it's swimming, it's gymnastics. Yes, they will provide updates, but I'm curious to see how much people keep up with women's basketball once they're over there. And the fact that the toughest competition that Team USA will face in the month of July was actually from Team WNBA. Interest may wane because even if you love watching Team USA, you do grow a little tired of watching them win by 50. We all want them to, we all expect them to, but we don't necessarily lock in for 4 quarters watching a blowout. And there's a lot of other storylines and stuff that we want to check out. So I'll be curious once this Olympic break is over, what if they just pick up where they left off? Or if the part of the calendar that they are now going to be in makes it more difficult for them to get back going. Once the WNBA returns, once Caitlin Clark returns, we will be locked in to the NFL, to college football, and that's something that they haven't really competed against during this moment. Right? NFL playoffs, the Super Bowl were going on, but there's far fewer teams. Not everybody is a part of it. Some people start to tune out. The Super Bowl is just one day. But you know that even during those times, Caitlin Clark was not one of the biggest stories. It was still the NFL. And then once we were past the Super Bowl, that's when it really started to pick up. But I think that she was in the national consciousness, a part of the conversation for much of this college basketball season. And she's not in college basketball anymore. She's in the WNBA. So this is different than maybe if you look at LSU against Iowa last year in March. Right? And you say, well, once the women's college basketball season picked back up, we started to lock back in on Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark. But that was the same product. You were going from college basketball to college basketball. Now this is WNBA. It'll be another test of the Caitlin Clark effect. Because that season's just getting good now, right? They're going to have playoff races and MVP races and the Rookie of the Year race. I think there may be more than a few people at the WNBA office that are a little nervy about what things look like when they come out of the Olympic break. Nothing you could do about it. You're not going to shift your entire season to make sure that you don't go up against the NFL. Even the leagues that have been around for longer than the WNBA is like, we try, but we can't avoid it. And the NFL is doing a better job of filling the dead dates on their calendar. I don't think it's going to go away because it's Caitlin Clark. But I don't think it will be nearly what it has been the last few months. And I think we'll start to see ratings maybe slightly coming down. I'm just interested in where they settle, starting to go up against the NFL. Are they going to dip below 1 million people? Are they going? Is Caitlin Clark's game still going to hover around that number? You lose just a couple 100,000. Be interesting to see what, how much of the sports landscape the WNBA can almost recarve out, going up against different competition and after a month off. I think they'll be able to do it as successfully as they possibly can, and that's due to Caitlin Clark. But it's going to be different. But they did all they could. Right? That game on Saturday was awesome. They did all they can to make you feel like you want more. That you don't want to wait a month. 719-247-1313. Once the NFL gets going, how much do you think you'll be paying attention to Caitlin Clark in the WNBA? And has all of this, another question, has all of this that has gone on over the last few months enough to carry your interest into Team USA in the Olympics? Because you got a lot of choices when it comes to what Olympic sports that you watch. Take your thoughts on that. 719-247-1313. Coming up next, one Green Bay Packer quarterback, the current one, is making some news, as is his predecessor. Get into that next here on Extra Sports 1300. I know you said you were promised no math or physics during this show, but I couldn't help myself. Ryan texts in and says, I'm concerned about the Lyman School System physics department. Don't be worried about them. They did all they could. Right? It's not on them. Just because I cannot word for word regurgitate the first and second laws of thermodynamics is not a referendum on my education. Trust me. If you know me well enough to know that any shortcomings I had in my schooling were my own fault. From the 719, hey, Kaufman, Newton's third law states for every action, there's an opposite reaction. Yeah, we got a little physics discussion going on here. It says for the action of the WNBA going to France, the opposite reaction is me turning off the TV. But would you follow up? Would you turn off your TV if Caitlin Clark were there? Because at the time, that's what many people were making the argument of. You need to put Caitlin Clark there to boost ratings so people stay locked in, so people pay attention. Will you not watch because you just don't watch the Olympics? You don't watch women's basketball in the Olympics, or because Caitlin Clark won't be there? Or more accurately, would your viewing habits change if Caitlin Clark were in it? Or maybe a more timely question, if you watched Arika Ogunbowale do what she did on Saturday, would you be more likely to watch the Olympics, knowing that she was going to be a part of Team USA? Not saying Team USA should have made the call to include Caitlin Clark just for ratings purposes, but couple things. One, not act like Team USA has never made a decision based on what would generate the most interest, 1992 Dream Team. And also, I think Caitlin Clark, as a basketball player, is at least in the conversation. They're not putting a celebrity on the team and hoping that you tune in. And also, I'm not even sure that they made the decision strictly on basketball grounds. Right? There was the report a few days before saying that some of the more veteran members of the team spoke up, saying we don't want Caitlin Clark on this team because we're worried about their fans getting mad at us because she's not playing. Albert says, if I divide the big screen into 4 different games and turn on the NFL or college football, the WNBA will definitely get the annoying ticker across the bottom of a screen. It's a tough part of the calendar, and Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, that did not carry into the WNBA season for obvious reasons, right? They weren't going to the WNBA, but it just further proves that right now it's really about one person. And if you have some relation to that person, you're a rival, you're a teammate, you get some of that as well. Caitlin Clark didn't go from Iowa to the WNBA last year, so the WNBA didn't garner nearly the ratings of what they're getting now because Caitlin Clark's in the league. If anybody could get interest in the WNBA jump-started after the Olympic break, it's Caitlin Clark. I will say that. What that means, what that looks like, remains to be seen. Because I've been all in on this. I've watched more WNBA games this season, and not just Caitlin Clark games. But I've watched more WNBA this year than I have maybe ever. It's been a great story. I've been locked in. The drama with it, I love it. We're talking about the NFL here. Right? A little bit different here. A little bit different part of the calendar. You're dealing with a little bit. And I'll just say football. Because Albert's right. There's college football. Second season under Coach Prime. Expanded playoff. All of this other stuff that's going on. There's no sport that's healthy enough and popular enough to go up against. The Olympics couldn't beat the NFL in college football. Speaking of, are the Packers going to do this again? Are the Packers going to upset another one of their quarterbacks? Jordan Love says he's not going to practice at training camp until he gets a new contract. Brian Gutekunst, who, if you're outside of Green Bay, Wisconsin, you probably heard more from over the last couple years than you ever cared to. But you know who he is. You know he's dealt with franchise quarterbacks in the past and run afoul of them. He says they're going to get the deal done. Packers did not take a quarterback in the first round this year. So that helps. I think that calms everything down. I do expect Jordan Love to sign. And Adam Schefter expects him to sign and expects him to sign the biggest deal for any quarterback in the NFL. So here we go again. Herbert, Lawrence, Burrow, not necessarily in that order, and now we're going to get Jordan Love. So let me just preemptively have this conversation before we actually have it in about a week. This is the cost of doing business. Right? You want a quarterback. What's the alternative? You're the Denver Broncos. You don't want to be the Denver Broncos. Trust me, we know. We live here. If you have your quarterback, you got to pay him. Maybe you can find some wiggle room. Maybe you can, turn bonuses or turn contract salary into bonuses, or, you do some finagling, but you're going to end up paying your quarterback, and inevitably people are going to say that you overpaid. I promise you now, whatever contract Tua gets, people will say the Dolphins overpaid. There will be people saying that the Packers overpaid Jordan Love when his deal finally gets done. What, this guy plays well for 8 games, beats the Dallas Cowboys, who are fraudulent, and now all of a sudden he's the highest paid quarterback in the NFL? I can hear it now. But I look at Jordan Love's deal in a very similar way that I view Trevor Lawrence's. And understanding the reality that all these teams are going to have to pay their quarterbacks a ridiculous amount of money. Probably top of the market money. Because no one is brave enough to buck the trend and say, you know what? No, you go to free agency. Maybe the Cowboys are going to do it with Dak. I'm not so sure. Seems like a negotiating ploy on Dallas's behalf. Make you play for your contract the next year. When they've done this in the past, they've ended up paying guys. Is Miami going to do it? I think they're going to pay Tua. You would think if anybody in this league were to say, you know what? We can find another one. It's San Francisco, right? I promise you they pay Brock Purdy. One in the hand is worth however many quarterbacks are in the bush. They know what they have with Brock Purdy. They went to a Super Bowl with Brock Purdy. He's still young. They're going to pay him. But as far as the Packers paying Jordan Love, knowing that they're going to have to, and they're going to, with the upside that Jordan Love, I think, still has at his age, in his relative inexperience, he hasn't been playing this whole time. I like the idea of the Packers making a bet on what he's going to be in the future, because I think Jordan Love is going to be really good this year. And I think the NFC North battle between the Lions and the Packers is going to be one of the best things in the NFL this year to watch. I think both of those teams are really good, and I think they're going to be battling for that division. I would much rather be in the position of paying more for what they can be than what they have been. Right? And that's a lot of these first contracts, right? These first extensions, you're paying on both. Whereas when it's the second contract or the third contract, you're paying for what they were. Because you know they're not going to be better. Like, they've already shown you the best that they're going to be. So the Packers should pay him. And I think it will prove to be worthwhile, because I think Jordan Love is a franchise quarterback. And if you're the Packers or any one of these teams, let's face it, I would actually hurry up and get it done before Miami does it. Because if you're the last one standing, if Herbert and Burrow and Lawrence and Tua all sign these deals and you're the last one, then you're sitting on it. Nobody's able to pass you until the next year. So get it done, because you know the next one is going to be above and beyond, and then you'll take some heat for about a week, and then the next guy's going to sign, and then you're good. So not only should the Packers sign him to whatever deal the market says they should pay him, but do it soon. Let Miami dangle. Let Miami, the Tua contract, be the last one that is handed down before the season starts. Because Tua's, in some way, we take so many different ways to measure these contracts. AAV, total money. Tua will beat everybody in something. Every one of these contracts, one of them will look at total value. Another one will look at signing bonus. Another one of them will look at guarantees. I promise the Dolphins will set a record in one of those things. And then the 49ers probably will when they sign Brock Purdy. That's your saving grace. Get your quarterback signed before the last one gets signed before the season, and then the heat's off of you a little bit. I don't expect this to turn ugly, because I do think, even though Gutekunst ran afoul of his previous franchise quarterback, I think that this one is, how should I put this? Not a complete pain in the ass. I think that's probably the way I would like to put it. Jordan Love seems a little bit easier to deal with than Aaron Rodgers. I expect this will get done. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Because you consider the alternative, and the alternative is you're in the dark ages and don't have a quarterback. 719-247-1313. Aaron Rodgers was in the news, further cementing his reputation that I just stated moments ago. We'll get to that. But in the meantime, if you've often been feeling tired, lacking motivation and drive, maybe you've gained some weight, lost some of that muscle that you worked so hard to put on, might not be your fault. In fact, it probably isn't. These could all be signs of low testosterone. Say, Ryan, how will I know? Is there some way I can test at home? No, not to my knowledge. I do know where you can go. It's Low T Center. At Low T Center, they make it easy to get your levels checked. It's a simple blood test, and with their on-site lab, you'll get results back in about 25 minutes. The experts at Low T Center have over a decade of experience helping patients achieve life-changing results. Most health insurances are accepted, and they have a variety of treatment options because you're maybe like, oh, no. So I go in the once, Ryan, but then when I become a patient, I'm going to have to keep going in and going in. Not necessarily. When you become a more well-established patient, they have a variety of treatment options, including physician-monitored self-inject treatments you do at home. But at least take the first step and go from there. Go to lowtcenter.com to book your appointment today. That's lowtcenter.com. Low T Center, reinventing men's healthcare. Monday edition of Drive Time Sports. So glad to have you. Whether you're listening on air, online, through the Extra Sports 1300 app, or whether you're watching on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Extra Sports 1300. I very much appreciate your patronage. The Olympics begin this week. I want to let you know that we are all over it. I am all over it. I guess it's the more royal we, are all over it. Be following it. I do get some help from my friends at Westwood One. We will have updates throughout the day on what's going on in Paris. Discussion on this program about what's going on in Paris. So we'll know. We're on top of it. But we are a few days away. Opening ceremonies on Friday. Women's soccer, U.S. women's soccer plays Thursday, I believe. Getting going a little early. They got a lot of matches they got to get in. So they're going to start a tad early. But again, we'll be all over it. Speaking of being all over it, we are all over the three stories that are driving the show right now. All right. Dan Patrick gave me the ultimate segue because I was going to talk about the same thing he's talking about. Here's story number one.
The gap has closed. Nigeria beat us in a friendly in 21 in Las Vegas. So this is, it's not a shock to see a team, from South Sudan play really well and knock down threes. The game has gotten better across the globe.
That was Steve Kerr, of course, on Saturday after the U.S. favored by 45 points, eked out a win over South Sudan. And I'll make the same joke that everybody's making. I didn't know there was a South Sudan. And why isn't North Sudan better at basketball? But at any rate, I don't know that the rest of the world is getting better is necessarily an excuse going up against South Sudan. But you could make that argument for today. As the U.S. eked another one out, this time against Germany. And like Saturday, it was LeBron James today who came to the U.S.'s rescue with 8 points in the final quarter, grabbed a few boards. He, like his game-winning layup on Saturday against South Sudan, saved Team USA. Which makes the comments that have surfaced from Joel Embiid all the more curious when he told the New York Times, LeBron now is not the LeBron that was a couple years ago. So it's a big difference. So the name might be there, but everyone would also tell you, and you can see for yourself, the athletic LeBron and the dominance that he was a couple years ago is not the same as he is now. That was in answering a question about Joel Embiid having any doubts that Team USA is going to win a gold medal. He picked the wrong guy to point out and probably did wrong by naming only just that one guy. But he's kind of saying what Steve Kerr said, right? The rest of the world is getting better and our best players are getting older. But my question off of that, and I continue to ask myself this, whether it's after Canada, after Australia and Serbia and South Sudan and now Germany. Maybe LeBron isn't the right guy to bring up, but I continue to look at this starting five and think about Kevin Durant being inserted into this lineup. And I wonder if the rest of the world is catching up and if the U.S. is in some peril of not winning a gold medal. Why doesn't Steve Kerr put the best 5 out there? Because it seems to me that Steve Kerr keeps referring to Steph, LeBron, KD, and also, by the way, Joel Embiid as his core 4. And the only reason I can see for those 4 being together, not just singling out LeBron, but those 4, is that none of them would be on this team if there was any chance that they would come off the bench. The best thing about this team, and today was the same way, it's their second unit. The worst thing about this team is their starting 5. Now, LeBron, the last couple of games, has put on his cape, come out of the phone booth, and won a game for Team USA. And I'm not saying that all these guys shouldn't start, but it just seems like those guys are in or going to be, when KD is healthy, in the starting lineup because they wouldn't have agreed to join the team if they were relegated to a bench role. And given that 3 of those guys played almost their entire careers in the super team era, you look at them and they're like, this is a super team. This is why people aren't doing super teams anymore in the NBA. Because it's a lot of one-on-one. It's a lot of ISO. It's a lot of hero ball. LeBron James can still be a hero. But do you have to have all of them in the lineup together? The short answer is yes, because, again, they would not be on the team if they were on the bench. But that's not the best version of Team USA. Anthony Edwards, up until Saturday, was, to me, the best player on Team USA so far. The best thing about Team USA was the duo of Bam Adebayo and Anthony Davis. So why not figure out Steph or Bron or KD or Embiid fits with those guys? If the rest of the world is catching up and you're at least mildly worried that you can get God in Paris, why don't you put the best 5 on the floor at all times? Because it just looks like you're placating these more accomplished stars who may not be at the height of their powers right now. It's hard to argue that against LeBron at this point. But before South Sudan, you could. And you could still say that about Steph. He's been a little inconsistent. We haven't even saw KD. So how much is that going to help to bring him in the lineup? And then Joel Embiid. But he's kind of different than the other 3. LeBron's been great. He should be in the top unit. But you see, when it's not him and Steph and Embiid, who are all being essentially handed a starting spot, plays a little bit better. You know, some of the personnel around him when he's doing his thing at the end of these games, it's not necessarily those guys. But to call out LeBron is interesting from Joel Embiid. But if Team USA is relying on Steph, KD, and LeBron to be their big 3, then maybe they are in a little bit of trouble. Maybe the focus should shift to Anthony Edwards or Jason Tatum with those guys. But Steve Kerr likes to bunch them all together. and give them all starting spots. And then we're just saying, okay, here's the inevitable slow start. Now comes the bench. Now Team USA takes off. Shouldn't be that way. They should jump on these teams, and they're not. But this is the epitome of hashtag first world problems, because they did beat every team in this pre-Olympic showcase that they had. And even with these slow starts, they'll probably beat most of the teams in this tournament. But all it takes is one. And it seems like Team USA is a little bit worried about that one. Stick with Team USA for story number 2.
Agumbawale, you bet! It's a heater worthy of Phoenix in July.
Ryan Rucco on the call for ABC. You tuned in Saturday to watch Caitlin Clark, and you got Enrique Agumbawale with 34 points, was the game's MVP, and just think she didn't even score a single one of those points in the first 2 quarters. The interest level for the WNBA All-Star game going in was because Caitlin Clark was left off the roster, and in many people's minds, it was politics that were involved to keep her from that team. And the interest level was, oh, Caitlin Clark, she's going to go off against Team USA and make them regret not taking her. Well, it's a little bit hard for her to go off when she's being picked up the entire length of the court, and Kelsey Plum is basically hugging her the whole time. Still, Caitlin Clark able to dish out 10 assists, one shy of an all-star game record. But the story was Enrique Agumbawale, who brings the same thoughts to mind. Not that many people were lamenting Agumbawale's omission from Team USA, but she withdrew her name from consideration. And in her reasoning said, there are politics in everything. People didn't hear it because it wasn't Caitlin Clark or Angel Reese that said it. But Agumbawale voiced exactly what people's concerns are on why Caitlin Clark is not heading to Paris right now. Because it's not the ultimate meritocracy we want Team USA to be. And that's prevalent on both the men's side and the women's side. But Agumbawale thumbed her nose at the politics of Team USA and torched them for 34 points, and doesn't make people feel warm and fuzzy about Team USA as they head to Paris. Well, they'll play a friendly in London tomorrow, and then they'll go to Paris. It's not a great look for Team USA. When Caitlin Clark dishes out 10 assists, Angel Reese has a double-double, and Enrique Agumbawale lights them up for 34. And a team just cobbled together through Team USA's leftovers and a fan vote beats Team USA that is supposedly together in this form because of continuity, because of their experience playing with one another, and a team with even less experience playing together beat them. So don't tell me that the 12 best American players are all on Team USA, because I watched that game and they're not. Most of the 12 are. Not all of them. Let's go to football for story number 3.
Fields takes the snap out of the gun, looks upfield, throws the ball upfield. It is
Intercepted.
It's intercepted. Picked off by Shaq Barrett at the 1. He's in for a touchdown. Touchdown, Tampa Bay.
Buccaneers radio on the call. I would have liked to play a Broncos highlight of Shaq Barrett, who called it a career after 9 years in the NFL. But it is a little bit fitting that I do play a Buccaneer highlight, because as Shaq Barrett calls it a career, he will be maybe the quintessential example of knowing what you have and valuing it. Too many times we see teams and fan bases overrate their own players. Shaq Barrett was the opposite. His organization didn't believe that Shaq Barrett was capable of leading the NFL in sacks, which he did with Tampa Bay. They wanted Bradley Chubb, which prevented them from drafting Josh Allen. Fast forward a few years later, Shaq Barrett leads the NFL in sacks, ends up winning a Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Meanwhile, Bradley Chubb's not on the team anymore. They had to take the draft pick they got for him to get Sean Payton to help fix Russell Wilson, who they ended up cutting anyway. And Russell Wilson probably wouldn't even be in Denver if they would have drafted Josh Allen. And Broncos fans knew it, or at least they felt strongly about it. Post DeMarcus Ware, he was the perfect guy to step in on the opposite side of Von Miller and continue to wreak havoc on opposing quarterbacks. But that was not to be. And that was one of John Elway's big misses towards the end of his tenure as general manager. But Shaq Barrett made a lot of people around here proud, being that he is a CSU Ram, going out, leading the league in sacks and winning a Super Bowl. 2-time Super Bowl champion Shaq Barrett calling it a career after 9 seasons in the National Football League. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on the 3 stories that are driving the show. Coming up next, words have meaning unless Aaron Rodgers gets a hold of them, and then they mean whatever he wants them to mean. That's next on Extra Sports 1300. Celebrate Christmas in July with Switchbacks FC this Friday, July 26th at Widener Field. Be there at 6 as the first 2,000 fans through the gates will get a limited edition Switchback scarf powered by KOAA News 5. And then after the Switchbacks take on Las Vegas Lights FC, experience a very special Christmas fireworks display. It all goes down this Friday night, 6 p.m., Widener Field. Get your tickets now at switchbacksfc.com. You know, words matter. We have a big book. We call it a dictionary. We have other books that are thesauruses that tell us the meaning of words. And we all agree, we enter into a social contract that we entrust the people of Merriam-Webster to tell us what words mean. And we accept that as the meaning of the word. But as he so often does, Aaron Rodgers believes that he is above this social construct. So when he was on Part of My Take and explaining why he was absent, unexcused, mind you, during mandatory OTAs, he said, well, they just place the word mandatory on a certain number. They could put it at any days that they want to. I was there for more. They're all OTAs days. I just chose these two in particular and decided to go to Cairo or wherever he ended up. You know, when your boss says, you got to come in today, today's mandatory, you got to be here. Do you say to him, I've been here the last 10 work days, so I'm not going to be here for these two? No. You know why? Because the days that he's telling you they're mandatory are mandatory. That's what the word means. I don't care what days they were. If the NFL says these are the mandatory days, if you're not there and your absence isn't excused, another word that Aaron Rodgers doesn't seem to care about the meaning of, we will look at it and say, why aren't you there? You should be there. This is what mandatory means, yes? But not to Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers makes whatever days he feels like being there mandatory. If I show up, it's mandatory. If I don't, it's not mandatory. And he does this. He tries to make us seem like we're the crazy ones. We're looking at it saying you showed up to all these days where you didn't have to, and kudos to you for that. And he got praise for that, mind you. It's not that people didn't praise him. Plenty of people were praising him. Look at Aaron Rodgers. He's back at the grind working with these young receivers. He's committed. He spoke to the media. He got his credit for that. So being fair to the situation, when he showed up to OTAs that he didn't have to go to, he got an attaboy. But when he didn't show up to the ones that he's supposed to be at, people went, you should be there. And the fact that your coach said it was unexcused just further fortifies the belief that even your own team says the word mandatory means something. So we have two words that don't make Aaron Rodgers look great: mandatory and unexcused. But he doesn't feel like the rules apply to him. Like, if he just if Robert Saleh comes out, and that's the one question he didn't answer. They asked him, well, why did Robert Saleh say your absence was unexcused? Because if Robert Saleh stands up there and says it's an excused absence, then I think a large number of people would back off. They're like, okay, well, his coach said he was excused. His coach said it was unexcused. That means something. It means you get criticized. But this seems to be part of the Aaron Rodgers, the new and improved Aaron Rodgers 2.0, what he seems to be about. When I'm there, when I'm doing things, I want to be showered with praise, and I don't want any of the backlash if I'm doing something that you feel like I shouldn't be. We essentially have a quarterback that comes and goes as he pleases. The team hires his buddies to surround him with no thought whatsoever, or at least expressed publicly, about if they're actually the best people for the job. They're mandatory. So if you're not there, then you are running afoul. That's the way the world works. Kudos to you for showing up for more days. And that's the argument he makes. I showed up to more days than I didn't. Cool. That's super. Did you not just like have multiple months off after season was over, to say nothing of the fact that you've been injured, but like you haven't had enough downtime that you show up for 10 days and then you're like, I'm gone for these two? He didn't think that people would look at it and be like, that's weird. He was just here. And then when it became mandatory, he goes away. It's almost as if I didn't know any better, I would say that Aaron Rodgers intentionally skipped the mandatory part of OTAs just to make a point. You ever run into those people in your life that if you try to impress something upon them, that they just rebel just for the heck of it? Like, don't tell me. It's like Ryan Howard when he's talking about what he wants in a new boss. He's like, I got away with everything. I want to be led by somebody. But don't just tell me what to do. Like, lead me. Lead me when I want to be led. That is, Aaron Rodgers has Ryan Howard from The Office vibes. The minute you slap mandatory on it, he intentionally leaves just so he could show everybody how much of a rebel he is and how words don't matter to him. Labels. He don't like labels. And he even pointed at this, not for this specific reason, but you could throw it into the mix. Boy, this better work in New York. That team, that franchise, has many, many years where the player at quarterback has been a disaster. If this doesn't work, last year he tears his Achilles. This year, he doesn't win. Where are you going to rank this in the pantheon of Jets' futility at the quarterback position? Like, it better work. Oh, they just arbitrarily slap mandatory on it. Okay. That's their prerogative. It's in the rules. And everyone seems to abide by them except you. I know you're one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Had one of the best careers. You're not the best. It's not like you have nothing to prove this upcoming season. How does Patrick Mahomes think that mandatory applies to him and Aaron Rodgers doesn't? Because he's Aaron Rodgers. And he's been doing this for like 3 years now. Just being unnecessarily combative just for the sake of doing it. So he can get onto his soapbox and give you an alternate view of reality. That's his whole shtick. That's his whole thing. You see the world one way. I see it a completely different way. And I will take every moment that I have to tell you why you are wrong and I am right. Even with something as so, and also it's 2 days. Now he may be making that same argument. It's 2 days. I'm saying it's 2 days that is called mandatory. Robert Saleh excused them for the third day. You wouldn't even had to be there for 3 days, but you're supposed to be there for 2. That's it. You already went 10 days. What's another 2 days? You make the same argument against what Aaron Rodgers did as he is making for it. Well, I showed up when I didn't have to, so why should I show up when I have to? If you're a Jets fan, this has to be exhausting. Like that's just a feeling I come up with. I talk about Aaron Rodgers like once every 3 weeks. If you're living this life, oh, you got to be exhausted. I remember talking to people in Green Bay when he was going at Brian Gutekunst, and they're just like, we're exhausted. We're tired of this every day. Now the Jets are going through it. I hope it works out. I really do. Because the Jets franchise could use a win. But just being different just to be different. Wasn't that Apple's phrase? Be different just to be different. Be different just to annoy people. I think that's what I think that was the first draft. I think that one ended up on the cutting room floor and they ended up with think different. But I think it was think different, argue with people just to be a pain in the butt. I think that was the first draft. 719-247-1313. But all is well. Aaron Rodgers is back. Just don't you dare call any of these practices mandatory, or he'll be out. Doesn't like to be pinned down. 719-247-1313. Speaking of something different, but in a good way. You know, if you've been dealing with joint pain, maybe you've tried the traditional ways of going at it, whether it's, steroids, pain pills, surgery. Maybe they haven't worked, or maybe you don't want to do those things because you know of the drawbacks. Well, I'm here to tell you QC Kinetics offers an alternative. They are exciting new cellular therapies that can get you lasting relief. They help patients like you every day throughout the country and here in Colorado Springs. These are cutting-edge treatments that accelerate your own body's healing properties, revitalizing your joints so you can move again. If you're living with chronic pain from arthritis or injury, you need to know steroids and surgery, pain pills are not your only options. Learn how QC Kinetics can treat the pain, enhance your joints, restore your mobility, and give you long-term relief with no downtime. Call for a free consultation now, 719-247, 719-347-1988. That's 719-347-1988. restorative, regenerative cellular treatments for your achy joints at QC Kinetics, 719-347-1988. 719-247-1313 is the phone or text line. Well, it's both, actually. If you want to interact with the show, Dave says words are spells. Consequence is a word the Jets don't understand. Feel like that should be on a poster. Words are spells. Adds, it's like, well, Dave, are you sure your wife's not listening? Because I'm about to read this. It's like my wife, always late to work, but, quote, gets the work done. So no need to abide by the rules set that everyone else in the whole world agrees upon. Hashtag eye roll. I know, like, we're living in a society. This isn't semantics. Mandatory is mandatory. And you still have an out. It's getting a good reason to get out of mandatory. And Aaron Rodgers did none of those things. He talked to Robert Saleh. Robert Saleh was like, yeah, I can't excuse you for that. And Aaron Rodgers was like, okay, I'll see you in 3 weeks. Hate to sound like George Costanza, but we are trying to live in a society here. Aaron Rodgers' work can't be done remotely. His work can't be put into an email. And in the grand scheme of things, is it a massive deal that he missed those 2 days? No, but that's not the point. Aaron Rodgers wants you to fixate on that and say, I was there for 10 days and I'm gone for 2. It's not a big deal. I got more work in. That's not the point, guy. The point is, over the last 2 or 3 years, you have been speaking out and speaking up against the organizations you work for. And at every turn where it seems like you're doing something good, like when he first got hurt, he was around the team, he was talking him up. It's like, wow, Aaron Rodgers is a great guy. He's helping out his team. And then as we went along, we realized, oh no, this is his own selfish pursuit of defeating science. The more he's around, the more he gets an opportunity to say, I'm coming back, gets him more attention. It's just this cycle that never ends. It's like every turn where it seems like Rodgers is doing something that's for the betterment of the team and not necessarily about himself, he immediately throws out the Uno reverse cards like, no, this is for me. Shows up for 10 days. Great. Awesome. He's there. He's getting to work. Gone for 2 days just because they're mandatory. I swear that's why he did it. Just to show he could get away with it. This isn't semantics. The word mandatory means something. This is mandatory. Albert says the meaning of a word or words, I like how you put this in quotes, is strictly at the discretion of the user unless interpreted by a listener through their personal filters. Words are only a vehicle for communication. Probably Aaron Rodgers. But we're not new to this with him, are we? He likes to take words and either show you that he doesn't care what the meaning of it is, or to, that Cal Berkeley education kind of turn them, remember the whole, I'm immunized, and everyone's like, why didn't you just say vaccine? Well, we found out why. I have the power of friendship. That's what it could have meant. I don't know. I still don't fully know what he's immunized with, but I'm not going down that road because that's a dark road that I don't want to go down. That's over and done with. But it's like, this is who he is. He's sarcastic. He's a smart aleck. He wants to show that doesn't live within the restrictions that most of us grunts do. Whatever, man. He's the Jets' problem. You know, one of the funniest games in the world, sports in and of themselves are quite funny, right? We can predict that something's going to happen. We can believe it with every fiber of our being, and it can turn out to not be the case because sports are difficult. It's hard to win titles, to hit home runs, to throw touchdowns. Forever. It's like Xander Schauffele's never going to win a major. Like, he came so brutally close so many times. And you started to think, yeah, maybe it'll never happen for Xander Schauffele. He was like the opposite of Rory McIlroy. McIlroy, we were so sure, and Spieth was another one, right? Won a couple of majors, and it's like, oh, he's going to win a bunch. Watch out, Tiger and Jack. How's that going? And then you have Xander Schauffele, who I think many people started to write off. And it's like, this guy's never winning a major. You feel terrible for the guy, but he just not. How many times is he going to come so close and finish second or third or fourth? And now the guy has 2 majors in the same year. Golf is the most fickle of all the sports. Outside of those years where you had Tiger and you're just like, Tiger's going to win. Golf has been completely unpredictable. And with Scottie Scheffler, like, just dominating, like, there's no doubt that Scottie Scheffler is the best player on planet Earth. He's better than Xander Schauffele. He is. And I can even say that when Xander Schauffele wins the Open Championship and Scottie Scheffler doesn't. I still believe with every fiber of my being, Scottie Scheffler is the best golfer on planet Earth, and I would take him over anyone, any day, at any course. But he's getting beat on the stage that people care about the most by Schauffele, by DeChambeau, and by Schauffele again. I mean, good for Xander Schauffele, though, because that dude has certainly been one of the best golfers in the world and has come so close, and now he's winning multiple majors. But once, let's learn from our previous mistakes. It's been a good year for Xander Schauffele, a well-deserved year. He's put in the work. He's a great story. Let's not expect this. Let's not expect this to continue and be pleasantly surprised when it does. Because golf, more than any other sport, you know, they do any given Sunday with football. I don't know, man. I've lived through the Patriot dynasty and the Chiefs dynasty. I kind of feel like I know who's going to win on Sunday. I don't think it's any given Sunday. If it's Super Bowl Sunday, I kind of have a good idea of who's going to win. Any given Sunday in golf, any given weekend in golf, that's when the nutty stuff happens. That's when the unpredictability comes into play. It looked miserable, by the way. The last two majors are just, it looks like it's, how can, at times I would love to be a professional golfer. And then I watch both Open Championships and I'm like, there's no way I would want to be a professional golfer. Every one of those golfers except Xander Schauffele looked absolutely miserable golfing in those conditions. Who would want to do that? Who would want to go play at any of the U.S. Open courses where they put bottomless bunkers? And I know that doesn't make any sense because how would you know that there's sand in it if there's no bottom? But they have like these sand canyons that are also, magnetized so your ball automatically goes to them. A lot of people don't talk about that at the U.S. Open. It's like watching the Open Championship and the U.S. Open. It's like, man, I thought I loved golf. I don't love golf. I enjoy it. It is a leisurely activity for me. If I had to take that up to feed my family and go on to the U.S. Open course or golf in the weather that they golf in the Open Championship, to say nothing of golfing on the European Tour, they probably deal with that every week. Miserable. But good for Xander Schauffele. He clearly loves it. Pretty good at it. And now has won 2 of golf's crown jewels. Good for him. Shouts to the Mountain West. San Diego State guy. Oh, about out of time, but do want to bring you a word from Low T Center. If you're not, you don't feel right. Just put it that way. There are a lot of ways that you cannot feel right, whether it's, I'm not lacking motivation and drive or gaining weight. Maybe you're noticing some loss of muscle mass. These could all be signs of low testosterone. Don't wait to find out. Find out now at Low T Center. They make it easy to get your levels checked. Simple blood test, 25 minutes, you get it back, and then you'll know. And if it is low T, just know that they have a variety of treatment options, including physician-monitored self-inject treatments that you can do at home. But those only go to their established patients. They want to get you going. They want to make sure that you're doing right, you're taking care of it, and then that's when you evolve into some of these other treatment options. But you got to take the first step before any of that other stuff can happen. Find out if it's low T that's keeping you from being your best. Go to lowtcenter.com to book your appointment today. That's lowtcenter.com. Low T Center, reinventing men's healthcare. It's been my pleasure to serve you this afternoon. Thanks for all the interaction and your patronage. I'll be back to do it again tomorrow at 3. Hopefully you'll join me.